Howdy, folks. It's Mr. Silence and Mr. Steady at your service today. We are here and particularly just want to get into right into this one. Glad to be back for another week. But the question here today in this video, chaos, chaos, chaos. We're always in it, or sometimes in it, sometimes always in it. You've been in the car, stressed out, talking on the phone, maybe getting bad news. You're at work, things are hectic, due dates, spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, problems, maybe all those combined. I've been there. I'm sure Matt's been there. I'm sure a lot of you've been there. The message today is all that can disappear like that. You control everything. Now, I know that's cliche to say, but on a deeper level, it means a lot. And when you master it, and it doesn't take, I don't think it's as hard to master this as complete silence sometimes takes. You can do this. This is, I wouldn't say fairly simple, but if you work at it a little bit, you can become the master of your domain at any moment in time. And that is the overall message behind this video. Matt and I are going to talk about some situations, obviously, that we've been into, stories. Again, maybe go down a little bit of a rabbit hole, but we're here again to just give you hopefully another message for anybody in stress, whether it be light or heavy. We're here, and just to give you some hopefully some wisdom from our side. Not to say that we know it all by any means, but again, just wanted to make this video about this and see where it goes. That said, my brother, what you got?
Man, beautiful, beautiful message there, man. I love it. It's so true. Like you can control your reality. You can create your own reality. And I do that every day, within the virtual reality that I live in every day, where my life is completely fake. Everything's 3D. I'm just kidding.
Well, you had me going.
Right?
Where's it going?
I just wear the headset all day long, and that's my fantasy world, and I never leave that. And I'm fine. I'm just on my couch eating Doritos all day, running out of money, but it's fine. No, I'm just kidding. Hey, I'm loving the Texas flag though, and the hat, That's a nice touch.
Yeah, I was just feeling just extra Texas today.
That's the way to do it, man. You gotta represent.
Yeah, gotta represent.
Gotta represent. No. On a serious note, though, I did want to talk about, I say creating your own reality. That might sound a little fantastical, if you will. Like maybe that's not something that's true. But it is in the sense of, I feel like the way that you operate here is very, very important. And you brought up something in the last video, which I thought was a really, I don't know if I want to say eloquent way of putting it, but a memorable way of putting it, which was a lot of times the war is happening between your ears. And I just thought that was so true, man. Because a lot of times we're our own worst enemy, and things happen in life, but we can choose how to react to what happens. And one of the big things you and I have struggled with that I wanted to talk about today as well is anxiety, and how you can actually overcome anxiety by thinking differently. Now, I'm not saying that, you shouldn't listen to what your doctor says, or you shouldn't take any, healthcare advice or anything like that. Definitely, I'm a proponent of science. Definitely, you know, follow medical advice if you have real issues. But I do want to say that mindset is everything, and you can absolutely alter the way you feel and the way you see things by just altering your mind. And I feel like a lot of us, most of us even, are controlled by our minds. And our minds are controlled by the messages that are fed into it from the outside world. And, I feel like a lot of us are on autopilot. I know for many years I was that way. And it's just like I'm moving throughout the world, going and doing my day-to-day activities, and I'm not really even thinking about what's really going on here. And, things would affect me. They would affect me emotionally. They would affect me, my mental stability, because I was controlled by my mind and by outside or external things that were happening, and I also really truly believed that this world was as real as it gets. And I think if you believe that, then it's very easy to get trapped in, you know, um, the action and reaction of the world, and it's hard to get out of that web. It's hard to get untangled from that. So let me just say this. I know I've already spoken at length, but I wanted to tell a story, because I think stories are relatable. And so I I go on business trips often for my job, and I have to get on planes often. But there was a time in my life where I had a very, very strong fear of planes, of flying, not just planes in general. Oh, it's a plane.
Yeah.
No, I'm actually, getting on a plane, right? Flying in the air. And it's weird. Dude, that'd be something, man. I'm
That
sure
would
that's
be
a
something.
fear.
For
I
sure.
bet somebody has that out there.
Yeah, I'm sure there is.
Like, oh, there's a helicopter or a plane or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Man, but it was the weirdest thing because I never had that fear as a kid. I flew everywhere as a kid. The first time I took a flight by myself, I was probably, I don't know, 11 or 12 maybe, and I didn't care. It was fun. Actually, there was a time in my life where I wanted to be an airline pilot. That's what I wanted to do when I grew up. I thought it was
Yeah.
so cool. I had like the flight simulator thing, on my computer with the yoke, where you could fly and everything. Man, I loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
And then the weirdest thing happened to me. I didn't fly for a while. um, I just saw you laughing. Anytime Josh laughs, I laugh. It's
Yeah,
like a
I know. I'm
contagious
just thinking things, stupid things. Yeah.
no, you've always got something going on there. No, so I did not fly for, gosh, I don't know how many years. It had been a while since I had flown, right? And some things had happened in life, like I grew up, obviously. I had started a family by that time, married with one kid at that time. And so, some big life changes had occurred. And I don't know if that had something to do with it. It could have played a part in this new fear that I had, but I had no idea that I had this fear until the very first business trip I had to take, on a plane, that is, um, and this was like 5 years ago, um, or it might have been even a little bit, maybe like five and a half. But anyway, um, so again, spent all my life flying. I've flown overseas. I've been to Europe multiple times. Never had a problem flying. It wasn't any different than like getting on a bus. You just
Yeah.
I'm not worried about it. I'm sitting on the thing riding to the next spot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never had a problem. But then, and I, going on this first business trip, 5 to 5.5 years ago, I had no idea that I would have the reaction that I had, right? So I'm going into it just thinking it's just like it's always been. Like I got no problems, right?
Yeah.
So I sit on the plane, and get settled in my spot, and then I'm feeling like kind of okay, but I'm also feeling a little bit different. And I'm like, okay, my anxiety is kind of starting to kick up in the background a little bit. I was like, okay, well, this is kind of weird, and I'm thinking like, um, okay, so why am I feeling this way? And then, man, the wheels start turning. And it's like once you catch that downhill, it's just there's no stopping the train.
Yeah. That avalanche has started, and it's yeah. There ain't nothing stopping it, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least that's
Yeah.
what you
So,
feel. Like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
oh yeah, yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. And so then I'm like, okay, look at your surroundings. You are trapped in a fuselage. Um, you're like sardines in here, you know. You have nowhere to go. And if something happens to you, which it probably will, um, you 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 will have no salvation because there is no way in hell this plane is going to land in time to get you to a hospital. Now, granted, flight attendants might know CPR or even a little bit more than that, but they can only do so much. They're not a paramedic, right? So, I mean, if you're done for, then you're done for. Like, too bad. And it's one of those things too where I also had enough presence of mind to understand that probably what I was thinking was irrational and that I would probably panic to a point where I felt like I was going to die, but the pilot would probably be like, nah, he's fine. You're right. So then they're really not going to land the plane, right? Or if they did have to land the plane and I ended up being perfectly fine, everyone on that plane is going to be super pissed off at me, right? So no matter which way you swing it, I'm just in the worst possible position I could be in. Like there's no way out.
Yeah. Can I add into that? Like, if you did that and you like threw yourself on the floor or whatever the case may be, because you're like, oh, I'm dying. And then imagine all the cell phones on you. And then, like, by the time you wake up the next, you're like plastered all over CNN about this like crazy pilot, you know, or pilot,
Exactly.
crazy passenger, you're just one of those. You're just a viral video on YouTube.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Yeah. And then your suffering is just like, multiplied. You're now it's seen by the whole world and anybody can go back and watch it. Oh man. So I
yeah,
mean it's no matter which way you look at it, or at least this is what I thought, and this is kind of the reason for the video. No matter which way I looked at it at that time, I felt like I was trapped, had no way out, pretty much screwed for lack of a better term. Like you're just done for. So now, mind you, all of this is starting to go on in my head before we even take off. And I'm thinking like, all right, because now it's starting to like the heartbeat is starting to, increase, and I'm starting to feel hot, and I'm starting to get that tingling, like almost like numbness, right? Where I can't feel like my hands or whatever. And I'm like, okay, now it feels like I have a medical issue. Of course, I'm not going to say anything, at least not yet.
Yeah.
And we haven't even taken off. So I'm thinking like maybe you should just try to get off the plane now before before you get in the air.
Yeah.
Because once you're in the air, that you ain't going anywhere, right? And so, I think I might have lost you there for a minute.
Oh,
Oh, there you are. There you are. Okay,
oh.
cool. And so, yeah, so of course I didn't get off the plane, and because what are you really like? Are you gonna leave? And they probably even wouldn't let me leave. And probably by that point, I think they had closed the plane doors. So I'm pretty much, trapped at that point, right? So we take off. Long story short, we get in the air, and dude, I am losing it within myself, right? Like I'm not doing anything externally to where people would notice necessarily, other than kind of like sitting there, like, looking left and right, like, you know, probably looked a little bit crazy doing that, but
Can I ask you something? Like, were you developing like tics? Because I when I would do something, like I would have like a thing, like I would like I don't know what, like sometimes I would like burp, or like I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna lean forward and I'm gonna lean back, I'm gonna itch my head, and then I'm gonna take a breath. I'm gonna look left. I'm gonna look right. Like, would you get into like any rituals?
yeah, I did kind of do that. I didn't have like any specific ones
Right. You're just
that I
making
would
them up
do,
as you
but
go, or at least that's what I would do sometimes. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, because I felt like if I could keep myself busy,
Yeah.
then maybe I wouldn't think about it as much. But the problem is that failed every time for me.
Yeah.
And I know it probably happened to you too,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
because you had severe anxiety. And it, like I would, because I knew like, okay, if I make myself busy, if I make my mind busy, then maybe I'll stop thinking about all this stuff. But then like I'd get into something, like mess with something like you said, or maybe try to like read a, they don't really have magazines on flights anymore, but read something on my phone or whatever. And then I would just like, it'd be like a minute later, and I would like put the thing down and just be like, dude, I'm effed, like
Yeah. Yeah.
I just
So
could
I gotta
not.
I gotta ask I gotta ask too. Like, are you in the middle seat, or are you on the left or right, or is it like a 3-seater thing?
Yeah, yeah. I was I was on the aisle.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I was on the aisle. Yeah,
Okay.
which was actually good
Yeah. It's a little bit better.
because yeah, I could kind of like I had more leg room, and I could kind of like I could look up and down the aisle,
Dude, I can
and
see you just being so sketchy. Like somebody just kind of looked at him. I'm like, man, that dude's like keeps looking up and down the
yeah.
aisle like a fuck, like freaking weirdo. Like, man, this dude's up to something, man. He's gonna blow the plane. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
Because
No, that's what
then
it
you
was
could
like.
have, because I used to have sorry, I'll let you, because I used to have the same thing that you had, but sometimes you know uh okay, after 9/11, right? Like, I'm still somewhat young, and if I was on a plane, I'd be kind of like looking at people, and like, if somebody like looked suspicious or was acting suspicious, didn't know who it was, but like I could be like, oh man, damn, I would get on the plane that's about to like go down, because somebody's, something's gonna happen. But the reason I bring that up is because we like, somebody could have that type of anxiety of about that stuff, and now you're triggering them. So then
Right.
now they're starting to freak out,
Yeah, it's like a vicious cycle.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, I mean it very well could be, and I'm sure I could have set somebody off because I was definitely like looking up and down and like because I was trying to what I was really trying to do was decide if I needed to let a flight attendant know
Yeah.
what I was going through. And then so I was trying to like figure out like, okay, where are they? And like, do I need to call them over? And then I'd be like, no, no, don't do that. But dude, it got to the point. Well, so I'll say this: I was just absolutely flipping out in midair, and I was even. I didn't really get to this point, but I was starting to like kind of hyperventilate a little bit to where I was like, all right. And I remember at that point I went to the bathroom, lavatory, whatever you want to call it on the plane. And I just like looked at myself in the mirror and I like threw some water on my face and I was like, dude, you gotta figure out a way to like get over this, because this is like really but yeah, so went back and yeah, I was like that close to calling a flight attendant over. And just being like, hey, you gotta land the plane. You gotta land the plane.
Yeah.
Because I just dude, it was brutal, but obviously I made it through. But I'll tell you what, man, that's not when it ended. So this whole thing, I really wanted it to be well, this story, right? Not the video, but this story, I wanted it to be more around the flying thing because I have something that I wanted to share about that. But as kind of a quick side note, when I did get to my destination, um, I even had anxiety there, and I don't know if it was that I was like away from my family, because I had recently had a child and it was my first one. And it was the first time I had left them since, she had been born. And I just, I was like, man, well, what if something happens while I'm out here and like, there's no way for me to get back to them or whatever. And so I worked myself up and I was in a classroom, taking a training while I was out of this place. And I remember going through this stuff in my mind, and I had the same symptoms I had on the airplane in that classroom. And I was like, dude, man, this is just, and I said to myself, all right, I'm not doing this. I'm on the ground now. I can go wherever I want. I just got up out of my seat, went to my rental car, drove straight to a doctor's office, and I was like, "Hey, I got heart problems. Losing my mind."
Yeah, yeah. Hey, you don't even have to run tests. I'm just telling you exactly what's going on right now. Just go ahead and
Right.
just perform the open heart surgery right now,
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Go ahead and put
Yeah,
a couple of
just
stents in there. Yeah, yeah. Let's
open
go.
me up.
Yeah,
Get a donor in here. I'm gonna need a new
yeah,
heart.
yeah. Need a pig heart. Just go ahead and slap that thing up in here. And
Big heart. Yeah.
matter of fact, leave
Right.
the one I have, and then give me another one. Just have two, so I'll feel better.
Have like
Yeah,
a backup, right?
yeah. I'll
Like
have a
an
backup
active
heart.
standby.
Yeah, it'll have like a generator heart. I'll just hit the button and it'll just start up. In case this one goes out on me. It'll buy me
That's
some
a
time
great
to get to the
idea.
hospital. Yeah,
Yeah, we need to start having backup hearts, dude. There you
yeah.
go.
Backup hearts. It just runs off the good old sun. Solar panel like right here on your shoulder.
Exactly. Man, I think
Yeah.
we just invented something.
Hey, yeah. Call them
All
up.
right.
Yeah,
Hey, you guys aren't going to see too many more videos. We just became millionaires. We're going to just
yeah,
go do something else.
yeah, yeah.
No, no. And all this is just straight from the heart anyway, right? Hey, no pun intended or pun
Hey,
intended, whichever
hey.
way you want to look at
Yeah,
it. No, but so yeah, I go to the doctor and they run an EKG and they were like, well, you looking at the results of this, it doesn't look it doesn't look immediately concerning, but there are a couple things that one could interpret as abnormal.
Oh
And
God. Now just throw you down a whole nother rabbit hole. I shouldn't even have come here now. Yeah.
right. And then yeah, and I'm like, yeah, see? I know I'm not crazy. I was right the whole time.
There it is. I knew it. Yep.
Yeah. And so then, and I don't know if this doctor was like in cahoots with the local hospital or whatever, but he was like, my recommendation is that you go to the ER. And that was like, okay, wow. You should go to the ER and you should have them uh, check you out and run additional tests on you and make sure everything's okay. Like I think it's okay, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. So go ahead and go do that. And I'm like, wow, all right, this is crazy. So I go to the ER, and obviously, if you tell them you have chest pains, you're like put to the front of the line. And so they brought me right in and started doing these tests, and they didn't see anything right off the bat. So they were like, we're going to run more tests, but you're okay for now to just wait, for some other people to go ahead, and then we'll get you in here. So I'm like, okay. So I'm in the ER, and dude, I was in the ER for like 5 hours, and there's just all sorts of people coming through, going
Well,
through.
there's never a short visit at the ER, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm like in the waiting room, and obviously, some of my coworkers and even my boss had caught on to the fact that I had left, and so they're texting me and they're like, "Hey, are you good?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm actually at the hospital right now. Something happened. I can explain it later, but I'm probably not going to be back today. I should be good for tomorrow, but I'm out for the rest of the day." And they were like, "All right, whatever." So I get back there. They run all these tests, and I mean, like, as rigorous as you can get, without cutting you open, basically. And they come back and they're like, "Yeah, we found nothing. You're good. You're perfectly fine."
Yeah.
And I'm just like, "All right, cool. I mean, I guess
Yeah.
that's good news, right?"
Yeah.
And then, dude, then I was just exhausted. Then I just like went back to the hotel and just crashed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, because I mean, it takes a toll on
Oh yeah.
you, you know?
Yeah.
And so then, then I had to face, well, now I got to get back on a plane to get back home, at the end of that trip. And of course, I just hopped them back,
Oh yeah.
before I got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, now I know what's going to happen. So I'm going to come prepared. And,
Yeah.
I'm going to be slamming some beers, might get a cocktail on the flight. And now that flight was fine, probably because of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I was kind of trying to keep myself busy. Like I had music going on in my headphones, and
Yeah.
I was fairly tipsy, and I was just sitting in my seat, like listening to music. I was like, yeah, I feel good. I'm good.
I could actually see like you having the headphones on, nobody can hear anything, and you're just like looking at the people that's left and right, like, no, I'm good. I'm good. Hey, I'm good. And they're like, what the?
You don't need to tell me I'm good. I know
Yeah, I
I'm
know I'm
good.
good. And they're like, I wasn't even talking to you. You're
Right.
like,
Dude, it was almost like that though, because I was literally like bobbing in my seat, like to
yeah,
music,
yeah,
and I was just like okay, yeah, these are some good beats.
yeah. Oh
Oh man. But I knew at that point that I had a problem, with flying. Now, I had dealt with anxiety issues before, but that was the most extreme it had ever been. And that like kicked off the whole anxiety thing for me,
Mm,
to where it really, like, again, I had dealt with that in the past
mm,
years before that. I mean, like 10 years or more before that. Um, I had major anxiety issues, and like I was even diagnosed with severe anxiety and severe depression. And but it was like over the years, and I probably masked a lot of it with drugs and alcohol um over the years. But at that point in time, with the whole flying thing, I had pretty much stopped doing all the crazy partying and everything. So like I didn't really have a medication, like a self-medication to mask all that stuff. So like it really came to the forefront, right? And and yeah, so that's when I knew, like, okay, I got a big issue here.
mm,
But now I say all that to say, like I said in the beginning of the story, I fly all the time now, right? Um, and I will still at times get a little bit of like something in the back of my mind that comes up and is like, hey, you're about to get on a plane. What's this going to be like?
yeah.
Um, and so I recently, just even this week, was out somewhere else, and I had to fly out there and back, obviously. And so that happened to me this week, to where I had a little thought in the back of my mind as I was walking to my gate in the airport that was like, all right, here we go again. You're doing the flying thing. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you gonna be good this time, or is it gonna be another freak out session? And but now I have tools, right? Now I have
Yeah.
tools that and stuff that we've talked about, and all of that. And so this gets into the creating your own reality, right? I said, okay, I see where my mind is going right now. And again, it was dull, right? It wasn't anything compared to what it used to be. But still, I wasn't gonna let it even get past that, right? And so I said, okay, yeah, I see where you're going with this. And I realized, okay, I can create my own reality. I can do whatever I want with my mind, and I can I can make the world around me a very beautiful place if I just decide that that's what it is. And so I said, man, I love being here. The airport, this is my favorite place to be. Oh, I might have lost you for a minute. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
No.
You cut for a minute. I just wanted to make sure we were still on here. So yeah, no, I said to myself, man, I love being here. This is great. I love the airport. This is one of my favorite places to be. In fact, I'm in heaven right now. I am literally in heaven. I'm loving it. And I was
Yeah.
like, you know what? For so many years in the history of man, people have wanted to fly like birds, right? And they've always dreamed of that. And for most of man's history, that has not been possible. And within what, the last 110 or so years, however long it's been possible for man to fly. And I'm thinking, how cool is it that I am on this planet at this time where we have the ability to fly anywhere we want? And I can just go hop on a jet and just be anywhere. Like, how cool is that? Like, I'm going to be up in the clouds, looking around, seeing the earth below, getting a good vantage point,
Yeah.
like that's gonna be badass, that I think that's great. And so this is all just me, instead of accepting the lies, I'm feeding myself, well, you know, maybe somebody could argue that they're also lies, but they're positive ones rather than negative ones. But either way, right, I am deciding the message that's going to be accepted by my mind versus the one that I'm going to reject. So I'm rejecting the negative, the anxious, the fear, and I'm accepting all the positive messages that I'm creating on my own. And maybe we could say that's coming from the being, right? But the being is saying, hey, no, 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 you're not going down that path. This is, and even if we kind of have to say some things that may not be fully true, like, oh, I'm in heaven right now. I was saying that to myself. I was like, I'm in heaven. I'm literally in heaven, right?
Yeah.
Like, how could I be afraid? How could I be upset if I'm in heaven? And so, anyway, it made it to where the fear just, I mean, it was like, it completely subsided. It was like sticking in a cannon and fire that thing, out miles away, and you're gone. You got
Yeah.
nothing. You have no power over me. Never have, never will. I saw you trying, but you failed. You failed
Yeah.
miserably. And
Yeah.
I took total control. And I made it a happy experience. And I got myself excited about the flight. And I had a great flight. And I was happy
Yeah.
about it. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of the message I wanted to bring today was, what if we could do that in every area of our life? And we could say, like, hey, this thing that's going on, I acknowledge it, but it doesn't control me. I'm not going to let it destroy my peace.
Hmm. Yeah. Man, so right at the end, I think we were just saying, you're almost not conversating with the mind, but kind of sort of saying, like, I see you, you know, uh, you've distinguished it, and you see it, and you know when it's coming, when it's messing with you. It reminded me of the story of when Buddha found enlightenment, like right before he found enlightenment, he's Mara's like messing with him, and I think
Yes.
Mara was like his, to me, I think it's his mind trying to like pull him back, and
Yeah.
right at the last moment before he finds enlightenment, and Mara's just there, just like, what are you doing? Like, you're just wasting your time sitting here, and just the mind's just trying whatever it can do at the, its last breaths, still trying to like bring him back into, this world, right? And before he finds real reality. But it just reminded me of something like that. Like, you're over there just like, no, like, F you. Like, I already know what you're all about and what you're bringing, but there's a you're starting to distinguish, a separate entity in there, and you're noticing that, hey, yeah, you're no good for me. you know you used to be a part of me, but now I know, I know when you're there. I can smell you a mile away, so don't even try it. So yeah, that's just what it reminded me of. But um
Exactly. No, that's a good story for sure.
I, I've
The
had,
whole part.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I've had a lot of similar situations. Uh, I had my own thing with planes. I think I somewhat still do. Here or there, I don't. Obviously, I don't fly as much as you do. But the next time I get on a plane, I think now I'm pretty. I'm pretty even kill, but who knows? It could spark, like you said. I could be getting to the airport, and all of a sudden something comes in there, and I'm like, oh man, yeah, can I get a beer, please, before I get up on that plane? I'm gonna ride that
Right.
buzz until we get to our destination. But um, yeah, okay. So with mine on the plane, it was I used to fly a lot when I was a kid. My dad worked for the airlines, and we wouldn't go anywhere exotic, but be like, hey, fly over to this state or this state, whatever. And turbulence, it didn't bother me none. But the one thing is like my dad would be there, and I just knew anytime I was with my dad, like I would just felt safe. Like I didn't have to worry about nothing. You know what I mean? And I think that was like a security blanket for me, And
Yeah.
Plain could be doing everything, but I could look at my dad and my dad's just like, look at this guy over here, like freaking out. He wouldn't say that, but I could, I could maybe read it from him. I'm not saying he would do that, but anyways, he would just be calm. And speaking of that, with parents and kids, I think, that's really important, trying to keep your cool in every type of situation because they're looking up at you at all times. But
Oh yeah.
but yeah, just in a state like that, to look at it, he's calm. So, what do I got to worry about? You know what I mean? And uh, so I think that's something else, like you said, creating your own reality. Well, getting to reality. I mean, there is in the ultimate, in the real reality, in the real world, what I call it like, I call it fantasy, and then the real world. Like enlightenment is the real world, and we're all living in this fantasy world. Uh,
Yeah.
but that lost my train of thought. All right, hold on. I'm gonna do what they
You were
do.
saying like getting back to reality, and you were there with your dad.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. There with that, and then finding that self inside you. The being is like my father. You know, if I see the being is always cool. You know, it's right as rain. It's everything's. It's the perfect thing. It's the perfect singularity. It's the perfect thing. You know what I mean? It's just, and it dwells in all of us. It's a solid rock. It's a core. It's perfect. And uh, so that's inside you. And if if you can find that at any moment in time, you are that thing. You know what I mean? Uh, and you can find that the comfort, doesn't need to be outside you. It's in here, So, um, I bring that up because I see my dad, he's calm, but the being is always calm. So I could look within and try to find that. If I'm up in my mind too much, eliminate that, fall back into the being, or maybe even just witness the being and see my father, and maybe in some sort of same way. But so
right.
I mean, I've had that. I've had other things, other triggers of, at one time when I was bad, I couldn't even be in a car. It was just something about, like you said, just something about being encapsulated in something. And just all those things. Yeah, it's a man, when you're going through anxiety, and then you're in a plane where you can't escape. I mean, that's brutal, man. It's I don't know if we've said it before, but anxiety, man, at its worst is like, and then your mind is just the monkey mind, and it's not being tamed. I mean, I was almost thinking, at least in like Christianity, in the Bible, or at least the way it was conveyed to me, is like, hey, whatever you're afraid of, and if you go to hell, you're gonna live that same fate or that same fear or whatever for eternity. You know what I mean? If it's
Yeah.
burning, you're going to burn forever. If it's drowning, you're going to drown forever. Uh, and it was like that's what anxiety was kind of like to me. I was like, man, it's like I'm like it's just every day, every second, every minute. I'm just reliving. I'm just in this loophole. You know what I mean? I'm like, this must be what hell is. Holy
Yeah.
shit! Like, yeah. So,
Exactly.
um, yeah, it's horrible. But then getting back, it's all inside. Now, if something was to come up, like you said, I got tools, and I can see it coming most of the time from a mile away. And after a while, and people that are going through a bunch of stuff, because I know at one point in time I was starting to get better just sheer out of, I had been through so many symptoms. You saying the hands numb, sometimes my face would get numb, like just weird things. Yeah, the first 100 times it happened, it freaked me out. But then after like the 300th time, I'm like, oh well, that's just part of the routine. You know what I mean? So it's just
Yeah.
like I was overexposed to it to where I was just becoming numb to the crazy anxiety symptoms. You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah,
I was just
exactly.
starting to get, my mind was almost getting bored with the symptoms, and I just kind of like laugh it off, like, my chest is tight, I can't feel my hands, and whatever. I mean, it's gonna
Right.
pass. I don't know what's going on, but it's gonna pass. Uh, so if you are going through some stuff, people, I'm not saying that's the right way, but man, after a while, you keep fighting, and keep fighting it. After a while, you're just gonna be like, you're just gonna go like, oh, okay, yeah, there go my hands. In about 20 minutes, my lips are gonna get numb. Oh, yep, there it goes. 20 minutes, right on the dot. Hey, and you just go through the routine.
Exactly.
And you're like, okay, in about 35 minutes, I'm gonna start coming down. Okay, yep, here we go. Let me get a bowl of water, and just let it go through its routine. You're just like, okay, well, I'm just gonna have to deal with that for the rest of my life. But at least I know what's coming and how long it's gonna last. You know what I mean? Um, there's that. But getting back to you know your own domain and creating your own reality, your own world, the real world is, I have it when I'm at the job. I've been having the past couple of weeks, been real busy, not complaining about that, but there's a man, I got, phones ringing. I can't get this stuff done because this stuff over here, this new stuff's just stacking up over here. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there ain't enough time in the day. And to just get this stuff done and get caught back up. And there will be sometimes I'll be driving the truck and I feel like I'm getting pulled everywhere. I don't know if you have the feeling sometimes you're at work or something, you're just spinning your wheels, and it feels like you're getting nothing done, but you're busy and you're like, man, I didn't get nothing done. And I felt like I did a bunch of everything and didn't get nothing done.
Yeah.
Worst
Oh yeah.
freaking feeling. And here comes the next day, and I feel like I'm about to do the same thing over again. And I'm just like, you know what? Hold up. Bam. Shut up. Just sit here. Because you're 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 acting like a crazy man right now. Just stop. Just stop. Like, what does this even mean? What does it matter? It doesn't mean a damn thing. Just sit here and just get back to stillness, to silence, and just get back to the one. And I'll just sit there and just close my eyes, or maybe I'll just sit there in the truck or wherever I'm at and just sit in silence for peace, just for maybe 30 seconds, whatever I need, and just take a couple of deep breaths. And I swear I'm still in it, but it's different now. I feel 100%. Well, I would say all the time I feel 100% in control, but I feel a lot more in control. And everything's still the same. I still got the same amount of calls. My texts are still blowing up. My emails are still going crazy. But it's almost like I've taken myself a little bit out of the picture, and I'm starting to see the full picture a little bit more. And it brings
Yeah.
comfort. I'm just like, okay, okay, you know, let me just work on this. Let me just work on that. And then it gets into that flow thing. I can't, you know, I can't control this. So I'm just gonna just kind of flow with it. You know what I mean? And then all these teachings start to come into play. You know what I mean? Of okay, calm out, let's chill out, just flow with it. Don't resist. Just go with it. We're gonna go about our day. And guess what? Every single time I'll even think about it. I'll be like, man, in about 4 hours, I'm gonna be back home. Maybe I don't get nothing done but the evening's still going to be the same. I'm going to be there with my wife, be eating dinner, maybe watching the hockey game with my boy. I'm going to put him to bed, read him a story, and I'm going to, crash out, and it's all going to be the same, and I did that to myself in the daytime. So Josh, as you're laying down and you're going to sleep, don't do it again. Come on, man.
Right.
Wake up, take a deep breath, take a couple of minutes in the morning, just chill out, reroute yourself. And when it starts up again at 8 o'clock in the morning, and that phone starts going off, just get a little bit outside that picture and just realize none of it matters. You're just participating in it, and you can escape whenever you want. You're all right.
Dude, that's beautiful. Yes, exactly. Yeah, and you bring up a good point of taking a moment to stop. I don't always do that. I've made an effort to do that more recently, um, and I'm still working on it. But it's the same thing, with me is whenever I take that moment to like, okay, hey, let's get back to reality, right? Um, what's really going on here, right? And like, does it matter as much as you're making it matter right now? Probably not, right? And then yeah, and then the day typically gets better after that. Another thing that you mentioned that I think is really important is like how you were saying, I'm just participating in this, and um, it doesn't really matter, whatever. I think that's important because the way that we view the world around us um, really will alter how we operate, how we feel, et cetera, et cetera. And the reason I preface my statement with that is um, because if we believe, now this is going to start to get a little bit, maybe a little bit out there. I personally don't think it's out there. I think this is the truth, but maybe for somebody who hasn't heard this or isn't used to this type of talk, it might seem a little bit out there. But the way I view it is, this world isn't real. I mean, it ultimately isn't real, right? We've talked about the difference between like the conventional or relative reality versus the absolute or ultimate reality, whatever. So if we're talking about like levels of reality, and let's say that the higher the level, the more real something is, in my mind, this world would be pretty unreal compared to other, worlds out there, other realities out there, if you will. But whichever way you want to describe it, and Eastern philosophy talks about this a lot. Especially the dharmic traditions of like Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, all that stuff, right? It talks about like this world being illusory, right? And it is not real in the realist sense of real, right? It seems real, um, and it looks and feels real, but it's not. So now, what if we were to take that as a truth? How would that change the way we operate? I think it changes a lot of things, because if this world is not real, then now this can be a little bit scary for someone encountering this for the first time, but that means you are not real, right? And all of this mind and craziness going on is ultimately nothing, right? And I don't mean nothing in the sense of, just a void. I mean nothing in the sense of it's not ultimately real. I'm not saying there's not anything that is real, right? But I'm just saying that this being that we find ourselves in at this moment in time is not the real being, right? Um, this body we find ourselves in, this mind we find ourselves in, the world that it operates in. And so, Buddhism speaks about this, and one of the terms it uses for this is emptiness, that all things are empty, right? Um, and it doesn't mean that there's nothing. There is something, but that something is not a thing. It's beyond concept, right? And you can kind of touch that when you get really deep in meditation or whatever. But the point I'm trying to get at is that has helped me a lot. Like really believing that in the sense that all of this really truly isn't real. Because then, you know, there's a sense of letting go at that point, right? And like you were talking about being able to kind of zoom out and get outside of the mess, right? It allows you to do that because you let go of all these things you've been holding so, tightly to. Um, and I mean, it can even help you with something like death, which is like the ultimate fear for most people. But if you're ultimately not real, then there's not really anything that actually dies because it wasn't ever there to begin with. And actually, um, so this is another teaching within Buddhism is no self, right? And it's kind of a conundrum. It's taken me a while to really start to understand this stuff, and I can understand if this is the first time someone's hearing this, it may be a little bit confusing. But actually, dude, this blew my mind. This blew my mind when a Buddhist monk told me this. He said he was talking about death, and he was talking about the fear of death and all these things, and kind of some of the stuff I was talking about. And I don't remember all the words he said in between, but he basically, like one of the final words he said in his whole statement or whatever was, he was like, yeah, I don't know what people are afraid of losing because there was never a self to begin with. And I just was like, and I was like, dude, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a minute. There was no self to begin with. Therefore, there's nothing that's ever lost because it was never here in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And it really made me realize that we put so much emphasis on this world and on our ego and on our identity and on the things that are happening in the world and on the feelings we feel and the mind that's just the monkey mind, right? And just like you said, it doesn't really matter, you know? And I'll say one more thing and then I'll be quiet because it reminded me of one other thing. One time I took ayahuasca. I'm sure a lot of you out there have heard of ayahuasca. For those of you that have not,
I thought you were going to say, I'm sure a lot of you have taken ayahuasca. I was like, well, I don't know about that.
yeah, I don't know if a lot of people have, but
Yeah.
right, yeah, exactly. No, I'm sure y'all have heard of it on documentaries and stuff like that. But for those of you who have not, it's basically a South American tea. It's very popular in Peru. I say popular, it's probably still kind of a taboo thing ultimately, but that's where a lot of people go to have ayahuasca ceremonies, right? So you take this tea that, comes from the capi root, which is, I believe a tree that's found in South America. And there's some other stuff, obviously, that you mix into that. But it's a very potent psychedelic tea. And it's DMT, the active chemical inside of it that makes you hallucinate is DMT, which is the same chemical that makes you dream at night when you're asleep. And it's released from the pineal gland in your brain. So this chemical, right, is the active ingredient in the tea that makes you trip. And then you have these ceremonies, right, where a shaman will, perform some rituals, and, you go on this crazy trip that, could last anywhere from 6 to 8 hours, somewhere around there, on average. So I did this one time. I didn't go to South America. I did it here in the States, but I went to a completely other realm, a completely different plane, right? And here's what happened. Okay, I'm sure everyone's familiar with this. You have a dream, and apparently, well, I don't know if that's true. I thought I heard one time that we dream every night, but we don't always remember them. I don't know if that's completely true or not. I'd have to go back and look at that. So don't quote me on that. But basically, let's say you have a dream and like you wake up and you vaguely remember parts of the dream, like right when you wake up, right? You're like, oh man, I just had a crazy dream, and you know, trying to remember exactly. I know this one thing I think happened. And then like you start to lose sight of what that was, and then you wake up a little bit more, and then it's just forgot. Like you don't remember it at all, and you just go about your day. All right, whatever. That is what happened to me on the trip, but the dream was this world. So when I went to this other realm on the trip, it started to freak me out at first because I was losing sight of this realm, and I was starting to forget everything that I had experienced in this realm, like, family, my job, and then it got to myself, right? And I reached full ego death to where I couldn't even hold on to my own identity anymore. And it was freaking me out, like, because I knew that I was losing all of these things. I knew that the dream was fading from memory. And so I was trying to tell myself all these facts about my life so that I wouldn't lose it. So I was like, okay, I work at this place. My girlfriend's name is this. My parents are da da da. Got a brother, sister, and I was trying to like keep telling myself, okay, you're Matt, blah blah blah, and then like I kept, and then I would forget, and I was like, wait, I work where? And then I'd be like, um, who am I? Who am I dating right now? And then wait, hold on. What is? I'm not. Am I anything? And then the sense of I got obliterated as well. And so this world faded from memory entirely, and I just went somewhere else. And at that moment, when that happened, I saw my whole life just like take off into the wind. And I was like, well, there goes that thing.
Yeah.
On the next, and I mean, it was gone. And it was like, it was just like, it was like a breath that just had vanished. And it did not matter at all. I mean, it was like uh, completely faded from memory. It was gone, and it had no bearing anymore. You know, I was just like, whatever happened in that thing, I don't even. I don't even care. I don't even think about it. And so that was a real eye-opening experience for me. So now, you know, when I get in those situations in life where things are getting really heavy, I think about stuff like that and I think about the things we talk about, and I'm like, dude, this whole thing, man, this is a dream, dude. I mean, it's all a dream. And like this whole thing, this drama that you're playing in, I mean, it's great. There's probably some lessons to learn, and that's great. But man, don't uh, don't make it so important. Like don't put so much emphasis on it to where it just weighs you completely down, because one of these days this life is just gonna it's just gonna fade, and you'll be on to whatever the next thing is. And so you just can't take it too seriously. And that's really hard. That's really hard if you've been holding on your whole life. It is hard. It is something that is challenging to face at first, but when you do eventually let go, man, there's freedom. That is liberation right there. I mean, there
Mm.
is just total freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. I I don't know if you would agree with this, but it's something that I don't know if it's been stated, probably has, I don't know. But I like to say to people questioning the chaos in the world and stuff, uh I say, yeah, there's the question of, can there ever be peace on earth, right? And my answer to that would be yes, there can be peace on earth, but there'll never be peace in this world. And it's, of course they'll want an explanation off of that. And that's where, like, if you're the cool one, you just leave it at that and say, now you've figured that out, figure that meaning out. But
It's the whole if you know, you know type of
if you
thing.
know, if you don't, get there. Uh, but yeah, I mean, from the beginning, when you started on this uh, talking, it is. It's this world. This world has been created, at least how I see it and make sense of it. This world, this fantasy, has been 100% uh, uh, conjured up by billions of minds. You know, it's just mind talking to another mind, to another mind, to another mind. It's all it is. There is no consciousness in this world, you know. And now sometimes you'll come encounter with some consciousness, and those are the ones that stand out. You're like, well, that dude was different. And it's because they're on another plane, literally. Um, and so And then, when you were talking about, it's crazy that when you were saying you were trying to remember who you were trying to hit all these points. I've done the exact same thing. I went on DMT or ayahuasca. I used to do that same thing. And I was going to say this before when you were about on the plane, because I've been in such bad shape up here, and I know you felt the same on an anxiety trip or anything like that, and same on this ayahuasca thing, to where you feel like you're hanging on by, I mean, a very thin thread of sanity. Like, if this thing, I like, it's about to break any moment, and I'm gonna lose all self identity. I'm gonna turn into a crazy person, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna lose total sanity. I'm like barely hanging on. And if we only knew that was the best thing for us. we're so afraid, and that the mind lives off of fear, right? It just, that's how it keeps us in check. As soon as you start to become conscious and you're going down that path, you better believe that everything in this universe, including your mind, wants to live. And it does not want to die. It does not want to go down. It does not want to go to its room. It does not want to sit in its room staring at a wall all day. It does not want to do that. It's a little kid. It wants to roam out and free and play, but and of course it wants to live. So getting back to, when I was growing up, I don't know if this, because I wasn't, I grew up in the faith, Christianity and stuff like that. But I wasn't like hard in it or anything. I just know just these things that were told to me, and the major stories. But another thing that was told to me at one point in time, I don't know if this is true, if it's said in there, but sometimes when I go to like friends with church or something like that, they'd be like, I remember this one time somebody saying, the closer you get to God, the more the devil will tempt you. Now this is an unconscious being telling me this, and if it was written in the book, or if Jesus had said this or something like that, I think that's greatly misinterpreted. What I do feel, if I translate it into a deeper sense, is that the closer that you're becoming conscious, the harder the mind is going to try to take you back from it, because it knows that you're getting closer and closer to eliminating it, and also becoming completely in charge, to where it is no longer going to be relevant for the rest of this body's existence, and it's afraid. Then in turn it's starting to get afraid, and it's becoming desperate at that point, and it's going to try every trick in the book, everything that it can, every dirty thing, whatever it's got to do to pull you back. And and that's, yeah, I didn't know that at that time, but just at one point in time popped in my head, and I was like, man, you know what? Again, when you start becoming, not to say I'm this, levitating being by any means, but I'm just saying, I I've started to walk down this path. I've found a path, and I have seen and sensed these things, and I'm telling you, man, you start to go down that path, you start to read these things, and there is no more gray area in it. You just know exactly what it means. You're like, oh, well, it's plain and simple. Like, I don't need to go anywhere for somebody to tell me to interpret this. It is clear as day now. I totally get it. But this, yeah, this world is chaotic. If in the world, in its whole, it's so easy to now to just understand the world in its chaos, because I understand now that the world that we live in will never make sense. It'll never make sense of somebody going in and killing 100 people, or you know doing something foul to somebody, and just for no reason, and just, yes, with the kind there's the evil, and there's always a yin and yang, and in the mind there's always a yin and yang. It lives off of fear, it lives off of confrontation, and what is up here is what's portrayed out into the world. And that is why the world is the way it is because it's literally the mind in 3D. We're witnessing the mind in 3D. And that's how I see it, and that's how I make sense of it. So when I see something, of course, yeah, it's horrible to see these things, but it's just like, well, it's just an unconscious world. Like, of course that's going to happen, and then
Right.
it starts to make sense. It's just chaos. It's chaos. it's not supposed to make sense. And you start to scale back, and it just becomes evident at that point, like, oh, I can't believe I was like participating in this, and
Yeah.
and and then having children now, and you're like, man, I surely don't want my child to like go through the trials and tribulations that I went through. Maybe I can plant some seeds early on so that he won't get too deep into it, into this
Right.
world. He'll have some conscious knowledge before he gets in too deep, you know. So yeah, just again, getting back to the viewers and stuff like that, and back to the message. This world, as you know it, as any of us know it, we can sit there and we can look at it in the ultimate. Um, we can go out and have good days and be positive, and that's good. You can go in there and it really does work. If you go in and you're positive in your day and you're upbeat, the world will vibe back in that way. Now, not to say that you're going to be immune to something bad happening, your car getting hit, or your phone getting stole or whatever, but overall, you'll just witness the world in a more positive manner. And I do feel that, I'd have to think a lot more about this, but there is something into you being more positive and more vibrant and stuff like that. And positive things will come back. You're just in a more positive environment. I don't, and then when you're negative, it just seems like more bad things are happening and stuff. It could be the way you're perceiving it, but I just feel like it's these paths that you're walking in, and it's just like magnetic to bad things or good things. You know what I mean? Overall. So yes, I do think you can manipulate the overall surroundings just by how you go about your day in a more positive or a negative way. That you can do that just in your mind, not even being conscious. You could just okay, well, I'm gonna be a little bit more positive today, even though you be 100% in your mind, but you're still in the game. But I think you could play the game that way, if you're still trying to work on yourself. But then again, all of it, even from the positive to the negative, you got to know that it's just a game. It's something pulled over your eyes. It's nothing real. Uh, the more and more you become conscious, the more and more you'll know that this guy over here that's swearing at me, that's dog cussing me, who cares? He's an unconscious being that knows nothing of what he's doing. The being inside is pure. He's a totally unconscious mind. He's been hacked over and over and over and over and over again for his whole existence in life. Subliminal messages, and he's a product of his environment. We all hear that. You're a product of your environment. That's the worst thing you could be. That means you've been totally imprinted and you are not your true self at all. So there's that guy. He's just, and I just kind of like feel sorry for that guy, like, man, he's really far gone, Hey, man, sorry I pissed you off, but hey, good. Peace be with you, you know. But what does it matter to me? It shouldn't matter a darn thing to me. No, it shouldn't. And getting back to work, to a spouse, to anything, again, it's all these outside things and presence and all this stuff that doesn't matter. It's again getting back to these the early messages in our other videos. It all is within. You can't find refuge outside. It's all within. It's all here. It's all here. If you're looking outside and you need it, make sure it's temporary, because it ain't permanent. If it's a girl that you're loving, or it's a new car that you're liking, give it a couple, give it a little bit, and see and give it 6 months, because 6 months down the road, or a year down the road, or 2 years down the road with that same girl, guess what? That playground's going to get real boring, and you're going to go right back to how you were with your previous relationship. You know, it's because it's you, and they're probably the same damn way. So you have to find it inside yourself, and once you do, you're the master of your domain. You can control everything out here. And again, if you're in a chaotic moment, if you don't know what's going on, and you're depressed, and you're just in a bad way at this moment in time, whatever, remember, you can just bam, you can just stop it all immediately. You don't need no drugs, you don't need no alcohol, you don't need no music, you don't need anything. Once you become good at it, you don't need nothing, just silence. And I swear, once you get good at it, woof, oh my, like, just drop all the weights, you're floating. I mean, you want to feel God? Oh, heal yourself. I mean, I'm telling you, man, it's liberating. It's liberating, and I'm telling you, it just, I mean, you're on cloud nine after that. But
Totally agree, man.
it's tricky. It's a tricky world. But get out of this world and just start living on this earth.
Absolutely. No, I love that quote. I'm pretty sure you are the one who coined that phrase. So we're gonna put your name behind that one.
All right, I'll hurry up and initial.
No,
that
but
yeah.
Man, I love that. I love that because it's just so true. And gosh, there was something I wanted to say on that. Now I'm forgetting because like your message just blew me away. So I'm like, there's nothing left. There's nothing left to be said. No, that's really good stuff, man. Yeah, it's just I'm left speechless. I can't say anything else.
Well, on the thread thing, have you been that where like you just feeling like you're barely hanging on, like
Oh yeah,
like you're gonna go completely insane if it just one more thread breaks?
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, I don't. Yeah, no, actually, I have felt that with anxiety before. I was gonna say I've certainly felt that on drugs before. um,
Yeah.
meth will do that to you for sure. Look, and just for the viewers out there, I am not afraid to say that I have been through stuff like that in the past, drugs and alcohol and all that. I don't do that anymore, but, some of the things that I'm saying here, like, it might be like, wow, okay, that's new. But I say it because, hey, someone else out there might be going through that, taking those things too, and thinking that that's going to help them in some way. And, just like you said, ultimately it's impermanent. It's not going to help. It's, it might help for, like you said, a few months to a year or whatever. And then it's going to get ugly quick. But I'm not afraid to say that I've done that stuff. And the reason is because I've overcome it now, and so maybe it helps somebody else, by mentioning that. But anyway, I've definitely felt that on drugs. But yes, I felt it with the anxiety too. And it's weird, like you said, because you don't want to be in that place, but then that's also kind of the place that you need to be in to like free yourself. You
Yeah.
just got to like lose yourself entirely.
You do.
And I think the insanity comes from trying to hold on, like realizing that something is about to be lost, or you're thinking that something is going to be lost, and just trying to continue to hold on to it, But I will say there is a difference between losing yourself in a healthy way and losing yourself in an unhealthy way, because losing yourself and becoming psychotic is different than losing yourself and becoming enlightened.
Right, right.
um, so, it's two different ways of kind of saying the same thing. But no, I love what you said, man. I just, there was something I felt like I was going to say on that, but it was just perfectly put, and I could feel the energy behind it,
Yeah.
and that's what we want to try to bring,
Yeah. Well, I mean, real quick on that thread thing.
Yeah.
Uh, I had to when I started to become better. I know I've said this in the video. I had to at that moment in time. I didn't know what was going on at that moment in time, but now I had to accept death because I really thought I was going to die and I wasn't going to fight it anymore. So I think that was my way of just kind of just letting go. I'm done. And that was
Yeah.
the best thing for me. Now, I didn't know it at the time, but all of a sudden it kind of it planted that other seed and I started becoming once it started to grow, I started becoming more and more powerful over the thing that was keeping me down for so long, you know. And that the sanity thing is, again, I think it's the trick on the mind saying, hey, you're going to lose your sanity. And that's just another form of fear that the mind is using to try to keep you actually insane. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Right.
Like it's afraid that you're about to find sanity and you're gonna realize it and then put it away, put the mind away. Uh,
Exactly.
and so and it's the hardest thing to do. I can't, at that moment in time when you're like freaking out, you can't be like, all right, Matt, just let go.
Right.
You're like,
Yeah.
hell no, man. You know, I ain't about
No
to let
way.
go of nothing. Um, yeah. So but it's, you know, um and that was the best thing for me, lo- because I didn't have insurance, I didn't have the medication and this and that, and it kind of just forced me to deal with that crap. And it was kind of like the best thing. It was the best thing for me because I learned so much. And I just had to face it. And um but it all manifested. And I just you just find your way out of it. And uh but yeah, that I just remember when you were telling me about that, just like clinging on, just barely, just feeling like you're just holding on to just a piece of hair,
Yeah.
and at any
Literally.
moment in time, you're just about to, yeah, just yeah. I'm gonna totally forget who I am. And I remember you doing that. I'd be like, it's crazy that you say that because I was going through everything. I was like, all right, my mom's name is this, my dad's name is this, I live at this location here, I work here. I was going through like all these things.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I was doing the exact same thing, man. It's crazy that you said that, but
It's
um,
wild.
again, that's why we have these talks because I'm sure we've probably said some things that you're like, holy, like I thought the same thing, or I was have the same kind of tick, or I have the same kind of trigger, that gets me into those states. And then when you start to hear people, I think I haven't been to no AA meeting or anything else like that, but I think that's probably why you have those types of meetings because you're like, oh, you're hearing the same stuff and you're like, I'm not the only one going through it. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
I, I,
Exactly.
I love that we have these talks because I hear you saying some things. I'm like, oh, wow, he does some things that I do, or when I was doing stuff, or maybe that you still do that I do. You know what I mean? And
Exactly.
it's just to let y'all know we're all in it together. We're all in it together. And
Absolutely.
and there ain't nothing wrong talking about it. And if you can't talk about it, we're here. If you don't want to type about it, just listen to us talk. And we're just here to just kind of just bring it out in the open because it ain't no good keeping it inside. It ain't no good. So uh, I hope this video gave y'all a little bit of something, and this is all we're trying to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. And I wanted to leave on with one message here. If you are going through some of these things, like Josh said, we totally understand. I mean, you've heard our stories, and we'll probably be telling more as we continue to come out with more videos. So, we're always here to share our experience, and then, listen to you guys as well if you have anything you want to share with us. But I would encourage everyone, no matter what you're going through, to try to consciously tomorrow, when somebody asks you how you're doing, try to say, I'm doing great, or some other positive, response. You could even say, I'm fine, or, I'm doing well. It'd be awesome if you could say, like, man, I'm fantastic. I just watched this great video last night. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, because I think that's part of creating your own reality as well, is you have to start with some baby steps. And, if somebody asks you how you're doing, and let's say you are feeling down, or something's going on, but if you, like Josh was saying, if you throw that back out into the world, it's just going to keep coming back. So if you're like, I'm here, sometimes I hear that from people, I'm here, or I'm okay, or you just get, I'm having a S type of day, just straight up. And I'm not saying lie, it's fine to be truthful. And you could even positively say you're not feeling the greatest, but I really do feel like the messages you feed your mind do have an effect on how you feel overall. So part of why you might feel bad is because of what you're telling yourself. You're looking in the mirror and you're telling yourself you're not good enough, or you're too fat, or you're too skinny, or, too ugly or too pretty. And, you're thinking that everybody else thinks that about you, and that, you're never going to be good enough, or, there's so many other people around you that are better than you are. But you got to realize all of those things are just messages that you're feeding yourself. And 9 times out of 10, most people aren't really paying attention to you as much as you're paying attention to you. And they're likely not thinking the same things you're thinking, when you're telling yourself you're ugly or whatever. People got their own problems to deal with, they've got their own lives to live. And for the most part, they're probably not paying as much attention to you as you think they might be. So, don't feed yourself those lies. Give yourself positive reinforcement. And like I said, I encourage everyone tomorrow, if somebody asks you how you're doing, try to respond in a positive way. Try to say, I'm doing great. Or if you're not, say, hey, you know what? Today's not the best day, but I'm working on it. Whatever it may be. But it's just those little things, when you start to do those little things in life, and you build the blocks up one by one. It does take some time, but you'll see over time, life will turn around for sure. So that's kind of, my closing message.
Yeah, no, it's good. That's well put, my brother. Well, this we're getting to the end of the video. I'm glad you stuck with us to the end. Me and Matt will be back again, more than likely next week. with another one. Until then, find silence. That's where the peace is. That's where salvation lies. And it's real simple. I know it's easier said than done, but it dwells in you, and practice it. Like Matt said, it's very simple. Hey, when you go out and somebody asks you, hey, you know what? I'm doing good. I'm doing great. I'm doing fine. Thank you for asking. Um, and hey, it might be time now. You wake up, just take 1 minute before you jump out and brush your teeth, or you turn on the music or whatever. Just take just 60 seconds. Just sit there in silence. I don't care if your mind's starting to go busy or whatnot. Just do it. Just sit there. Maybe just for 60 seconds, look out the window. Look at the tree. Look at the leaves on the tree, or maybe the sun's coming up, or look at the cloud for 60 seconds, and just try to just escape, just for 60 seconds, just for once. Just do it one time, and then we'll be back next week. Just do that. It's a start. So till then, peace be with everybody. Find silence. We'll be here. Matt, you got anything else?
No, that's it. That was perfect, man.
All right.
Yeah. Everyone has a great week, and we'll see you on the next one.
We'll see y'all.